What do you guys think of the 3D in Avatar, and what do you think about the sort of like 3D craze that kind of came off because of Avatar? Joe, I'll start with you.
I did not get to see the 3D re-release that happened recently, but I did see the movie in 3D when it came out, and I gotta tell you, there was something about the 3D of Avatar that just felt special, because it wasn't like the gimmicky kind of 3D that like we were just kind of used to. Like, they weren't throwing at the screen. Like, Antonio Banderas wasn't flying out of the screen to go save the Spy Kids. No, this is just like James Cameron trying to get like the audience as like immersed as humanly possible into this world he spent God knows how long creating. I think 10 years?
This was supposed to come out 2 years after Titanic, but he had the idea, I think, dating back to the 80s.
This has been like an idea years in the making, and James Cameron, we all know that man is a perfectionist, so it's like, of course he's gonna try and like get the audience as immersed in that world as possible. So
I noticed this recently because I got a 3D copy of Avatar. The first shot of Avatar, right, is like Jake's mind flying over some trees, right, and they pulled some Wizard of Oz. Most people don't know this. The stereo separation, or whatever it's called, in that opening shot is really minimal. Like, we've got this anaglyph footage up here so you can see the lack of red and blue ghosting. There's not too much depth going on, even though it's like this huge, wide shot over all these trees. Then they hit you with a 1-2 punch. They give you a gimmicky little, oop, there's a funny object coming around near the camera when he wakes up in cryo. But what's next encapsulates what makes Avatar the best of all time. The shot of Jake coming out of cryo into that giant chamber. It's massive. There's deep focus. There's an unusual amount of stuff going on in the distance. In the 2010 documentary Capturing Avatar, from the special like collector's edition Blu-ray, they say that the movie's like Dorothy walking into Oz moment is when Jake's torch gets extinguished and you see the bioluminescent forest for the first time. But I've never heard anybody mention these opening shots. But that shot is what rules in a nutshell. There's like these weird angles constantly where the camera's oriented like diagonally on its x-axis. It doesn't feel like a shoebox at all. It feels dynamic and really modern. This movie's filled with these really cool set extensions that make it feel fucking big. Another absolute crackhead thing this movie does in 3D is the screens that people use on the base. So there's like projected holograms, right? Of course you expect those to be in 3D. They're volumetric, but dig this. This is nuts. The iPad looking things that like the monitors people have actually have depth on what's inside them. Like, they use these little pre-comps that you could see into. Like, the screen is holding its own little geometry and inside. It was this way on the re-release, so hopefully the 3D Blu-ray I'm showing has that in the footage too. It was the craziest creative decision. These are my big things to mention, like 3D wise. This is based more on intuition rather than certainty, but I think the 3D gets worse as the film carries on, probably because you might get desensitized to it, or because they pumped out these special effects shots on an exponential curve that sped up significantly near release. But don't let that with you though. Nothing comes close to this movie. See it in 3D, it's undeniably the best.
I'm glad someone else kind of sees the thing where it gets worse over time, because I remember watching it, and by the time the third act was ending, and I was like, why aren't my eyes like popping out of their eye sockets anymore?
Yeah.
What can you say about the 3D in this movie that you guys haven't already said? It's spectacular, nothing else is like it. The only movie I've ever seen where watching it in the theater in 3D came close to Avatar was the post-conversion done on Titanic, which was a very spectacular post-conversion. I lied earlier when I said Doctor Strange is some of the best post-conversion work. The actual answer to that question is Titanic, because James Cameron like personally spent $70 million converting that motherfucker to 3D or some shit. The 3D in this movie is just absolutely incredible. I mean, the we're not in Kansas anymore moment that you talked about, Austin. I remember in the theater just this recently, before I watched this re-release, guys, I had never seen Avatar in 3D. Oh. I just didn't see it in a theater back in the day, and I didn't own a 3D TV at home. So why would I have ever gotten the chance to see it in 3D? Until now. And I'm like, oh, wow, I get it now. I liked Avatar beforehand, and I'll get into why I liked it when we get to that section, but there's no denying that the 3D and just being in a theatrical experience in general enhances it. This is a no-holds-barred epic blockbuster in 3D, and the 3D is absolutely spectacular.
This is why we're here. Unobtainium.
Just slid my ticket across the table and I said, sorry guys, I gotta see about a girl.